Hi everybody, this is Sean. Welcome back to my channel. Please help me out by pressing the thumbs up button, subscribing, sharing, commenting. I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate all the dialogue. Thank you so much everybody for your time. Thank you, thank you. Today's video actually comes from a subscriber who sent me an email and he wanted to know if police departments will authorize him to work also private security. So basically he's interested in becoming a police officer and at the same time working private security. I didn't answer him as much detailed as I am going to do that right now in the video, but this video, the information, the question is actually an excellent topic that we need to touch on for sure. Okay, look, if you work private security and you want to do both, just my opinion, Sean's opinion, be a reserve officer, a reserve police officer, and work private security at the same time, if that's your goal. Quite honestly, if it's me, if I have a choice between the two, my background's great, and I actually have a choice, I'm going to pick law enforcement. But what I want you to do is pick one. You're either a security officer, security guard, or a law enforcement officer. Pick one. Choose one. And here's why. So let's just say you become a sworn officer and you want to work your off-duty security gigs. Well, let's just say you get into a physical altercation with somebody and you get injured on the job as a security officer and you receive a life-threatening injury or just something that creates disability. So maybe you broke your back. Maybe you tore your knee in such a way that it's not repairable anymore. You have some type of maybe career-ending injury for law enforcement. If that happens as a security officer, you're stuck with the workers' comp premiums that are being paid by your security employer. You're stuck with that. Whereas if you get injured as a law enforcement officer, there's tons of benefits. There's something called in California, I think it's called 4850 pay or something like that? That refers to a certain section of labor code where you get tax-free, your salary tax-free for up to 1 year. And I think it's 1 year per injury. There's a whole lot of other benefits. Whereas private security, maybe you're stuck to your state unemployment benefits, right? Which might be like 50% of your salary. And you're required not to work full-time law enforcement. It's just not worth it, guys. And then the legal protections that you have as a police officer are not going to be the same as a security officer. You're stuck with whatever insurance company, lawyer that security employer has. Not worth it. It's not worth it, you guys. And if you're telling me, well, I'm not going to get in any fights, struggles, you never know. Even if you're walking on your post, it's dark, you trip and fall and you injure your knee and it requires you to recover for 3 months. You think that your law enforcement employer is going to accommodate you for an injury that you sustained as a security officer during your off-duty employment? It all depends. A lot of times, for your law enforcement employer accommodating your injuries, many times it's actually at the discretion of the chief of police or the sheriff. So you got to be really careful. And also, there's some states, so Florida, for example, I was talking to somebody that works for Miami-Dade County. He was saying that you can double dip. What that refers to is they have some type of MOU, memorandum of understanding, with private companies that hire off-duty police officers who want them to work private security. So you get I think you get the patrol car, and then you get the officer or the deputy, and that employer has to pay for the retirement or the pension for whatever the percentage is per hour. So basically, if you make $80,000 a year as a deputy in that county, and then you work like $150,000 worth of off-duty gigs, the off-duty gigs are going to actually benefit you because those private employers, those organizations that hire you, have to pay some type of retirement fund for you. So on paper, that all counts. All of your overtime counts in accumulating your final pay that you would receive as a retired police officer in that Florida county. Now, California, it won't work. It will not work. Overtime does not count. There are some fringe benefits that count, but overtime is absolutely not counted. But in that state of Florida, it is. Okay. Also, you don't have the same backup. If you're getting your butt kicked, you can't call for the world to save you. You can't call for an airship. You're on your own. And if you get into a use of force issue, your employer is going to back you up, or that client that needs you the most. Working private security is supposed to back you up. You're not going to depend on that, guys. You're not going to depend on that. Whereas in law enforcement, your employer, as long as you're acting within the scope of your employment, they're supposed to cover you with attorneys, any legal funding that you might have. I think it's a horrible idea to get into both. Now, if you own a security company, it's different because there might be more profit involved and it might be worth off-duty gigs. I will say this, though, that your off-duty employment depends on whether the chief or the sheriff is going to approve a work permit. In California, a lot of the smaller or mid-sized agencies use a legal system called Lexipol, Lexipol. And you can actually go online to any of these websites and download their own Lexipol manual, their own policy manual, and see what the rules and regulations are in regards to off-duty employment. Some employers put a special annotation there that you can't work any security-related assignments, any private security-related assignments. If that's the case, and you start working for them, you can be in a heap of trouble if you start looking for this off-duty employment gigs. It's not worth it, guys. Pick one. You either want to be a police officer or a security officer. And remember, the roles they're different. They're different roles. As a police officer, you have that enforcement responsibility, whereas a security officer, many times you're there to observe and report activity, and then sometimes hands-on. But you have these two different roles, and you don't want to mix up the roles. The roles. You mix up the roles, you're going to be in a heap of trouble. So that's all I got. If you guys have any questions, concerns, let me know. If you absolutely want to be a security officer and you want to be a police officer at the same time, consider reserve. But at the same time, make sure that you read that policy and keep in mind that these executives for law enforcement agencies, they can change the policy like rather quickly, like in a month or so. They can change the rules to state that there's no longer secondary employment. So that's all I got. If you have any questions, concerns, and valuable input, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Take care.